Hi everyone, Dylan Gowan here, back at the Banger Bar giving you guys another progressive metal review. This is a band that is somewhat controversial in the prog sphere, but I would argue that they brought a brand new perspective to progressive music in the early 2000s.
Or do you want me to lie? 'Cause I can do it, baby, I can do it. Lie to you, please ask me to. 'Cause I feel so much better when we just avoid the truth. Baby, are you okay to lie with me?
It's the brand new 10th studio album by COHEED and CAMBRIA called Vaxis Act 2, A Window of the Waking Mind, out today through Roadrunner Records. Now, I know what you're thinking, they're a prog band? Yeah, they're absolutely a prog band. And I'm surprised a lot of people I know dismiss them because of the vocals. And it feels like every single time I'm defending COHEED and CAMBRIA amongst my friends, I feel like Jon Snow getting ready to battle Ramsay Bolton's army. I'll get into that later, why they belong in progressive metal, but first let's get into the bio. COHEED and CAMBRIA are one of the most interesting bands when it comes to progressive metal. The band formed in 1995. They started out under multiple names, but eventually landed on the name Shabooty. The group was experimenting with pretty much every genre that you can think of, ranging from indie rock, alternative, metal, punk. The group would eventually rename themselves COHEED and CAMBRIA after the protagonist of Claudio's sci-fi epic, The Amory Wars. All of their albums, with the exception of The Color Before the Sun, are within the Amory Wars universe. You don't have to be a massive fan to know the story, but it just adds another dimension to the songs. If I'm gonna be completely honest, I'm not as interested in the story, but I'm far more interested in the songwriting. What separates COHEED and CAMBRIA from other prog bands is that they were able to incorporate other genres not really explored within prog, incorporating elements of post-hardcore, alternative rock, punk, and dare I say, emo music. The combination of these various styles really created their own sound. Their diverse sound combined with metal is what brought the band a very diverse audience. That's why when you go to their shows, you'll see scene kids, comic book nerds, metalheads, punks, indie rock dorks. You could say that COHEED and CAMBRIA introduced progressive metal to the Warped Tour crowd and succeeded. Vaxis Act 1 was a strong album, so expectations for Act 2 are just as high. So my question for this album is, does Part 2 live up to those expectations? It worked for Between the Buried and Me last year, but does it work for COHEED and CAMBRIA? After listening to this album the last few weeks, I would say that this is one of the more musically diverse albums in their discography. There are a lot of different sound choices and genres that they're drawing influence from that haven't really been explored within their history. Beautiful Losers, Comatose, and Shoulders demonstrate the very strong songwriters that COHEED and CAMBRIA are. The songs are simple in their structure, but sound absolutely massive. Beautiful Losers shows a lot of dynamics where it's very calm and atmospheric in the verses, and it kind of feels like you're floating through outer space, but when the chorus kicks in, it sounds super victorious and triumphant. Almost has a bit of a Queen vibe to it, and the juxtaposition of emotions in the song make it a very early highlight. Comatose is where they really let the rhythm section have a ton of fun, and it showcases the strong musicians Zach and Josh are. It's groovy in the verses with the choppy riffs and the galloping kick patterns, but that leads into this very energetic chorus that perfectly ties the two parts together.
Maybe this is a war. I'm so full of bad ideas. Trust me, you don't wanna hear them. Tell me everything. Now draw the line. Now draw the line. 'Cause I'm so afraid to let you know I'm letting go. Oh, I'm such a mess, baby. This game's over.
The follow-up track, Shoulders, has this kind of blues rock, hard rock approach with this great melodic hook. The guitars are driving, very distorted, kind of reminds me a little bit of Royal Blood, how it's so mean and in your face. But the opening riff has got to be one of the best ones on the record. The solo was perfect. It doesn't overstay its welcome. It's very melodic. and Cambria just know how to write really good riffs. Those first 3 songs demonstrate that. Claudio said that when they were creating this album, they wanted to take chances and take a few risks and write songs that they would enjoy, not necessarily what the fans wanted. And their risks were well rewarded with the songs like Love Murder 1 that really has very clever grooves thrown in, and how it's a bit disjointed at times. This is another track, much like in Comatose, where they really let the rhythm section shine and the drums get to venture out and really experiment. It's arguably one of Josh's most clever grooves that he's created. Ladders of Supremacy and Rise Nyanasha have some of the heaviest riffs on the album and have this kind of cinematic feel through it. Both tracks are very chaotic and show the heavy side of COHEED. Plus, the way that Claudio's voice is able to maneuver through all of these chaotic moments makes it that much better. It's very epic, symphonic, and it just crushes. The title track, Window of the Waking Mind, is a strong song that really demonstrates the amount of influences and genres COHEED and Cambria draw from. There's moments of 70s prog rock, classical flamenco music. I feel like the influence of 3 kind of creeped in this song, and alternative metal. It's so epic and musically adventurous and has this really dramatic build throughout all of these different genres that they jump from. It doesn't really repeat any sections, but rather introduces one great idea after another, and all just fits really well. If someone doubts that COHEED and Cambria are a prog band, show them this song. Because if that's not a progressive metal song, then I can't help you. Then there are a couple of tracks where you immediately go, that's a COHEED song. The Liars Club is a very strong addition to this album. It kind of reminds me of a combination of No World for Tomorrow and In Keeping Secrets of Silent Earth era of the band. It's a fun song that demonstrates a ton of subtle moments that make it a bit more dynamic. The horns and timpanis and strings in the bridge give this like a lot of suspense before the big moment of silence, and then it kicks right back into the chorus.
Or do you want me to lie?
I love that moment, and it's guaranteed to go over well with fans. This is easily a song that will get the crowd chanting the lyrics back to them. Sure, the lyrics are a little bit cheesy at times, and sometimes the songs are a little too safe. The real curveball for me, however, was A Disappearing Act. Sonically, it draws influence from electronic, techno, and modern pop music. It's a very keyboard-heavy and arguably danceable track. It sounds like his vocals are a little bit distorted and auto-tuned in the chorus. It's the most keyboard-heavy song, and I'll admit I wasn't on board with it at first. This is one of those songs I'd be curious to hear how it would translate into their live show. Blood, I would say, takes a little bit too long to build into a cool moment, and Badman has a great chorus, but the auto-tune, chiptune kind of vocals are a little bit too much for me. I think it works in one song, but when I hear it again, it kind of loses a bit of the effect. My opinion might change depending on what they do with those 2 songs live, but for now, they are kind of the weaker moments on the record. Overall, this is another great album by COHEED and Cambria. Had a ton of great songs, the mix was well balanced, and the cover art is great. They just continue to put out amazing albums. I love that they took chances on this record, and I hope they continue doing that with the 3rd installment of the Vaxis arc. I wouldn't say Act 2 beats Act 1, but for sure they're on par with each other. This record, Vaxis Act 2, A Window of the Waking Mind, gets a 4 out of 5 skulls on Overkill reviews. I can't wait to see COHEED and Cambria come to Toronto with Mothika and Alkaline Trio. So if you're going to that show, come say hello.